The Business Enabling Environment Program was established in January 2014 with the goal of helping Zimbabwe achieve sustained economic growth and reduce poverty by fulfilling the ambitions set out in the Zimbabwe Agenda for Sustainable Social Economic Transformation (ZIMASET) and other sector policies through improved public-private dialogue. Effective dialogue is key in supporting the establishment of a broad sense of ownership for the national economic transformation agenda, design and implement policies that are conducive to business, raise the confidence of business and investors in the policy environment, and therefore facilitate increased investments and growth. The mission was therefore to facilitate a sustainable change to the way public-private dialogue on business issues is carried out in Zimbabwe by strengthening the capacity of Zimbabwean partners to engage with each other, become more successful in fulfilling their mandate for dialogue, and on the basis of demonstrated success, raise funds to support the dialogue process. The overall vision was that by the end of the program, good quality dialogue would take place on the recurrent and sustainable basis between an ever-increasing number of government ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, and the business membership organizations, BMOs, across Zimbabwe, resulting in an improved legal policy and regulatory environment for business. The program was initiated by the United Kingdom's Department for International Development (DFID) and was implemented through Adam Smith International as ZIMBISA from 2014 to 2016, as well as complementary Doing Business initiative by the World Bank during 2017. BIP was implemented by IMC Worldwide as IMC.
You would obviously think we would fund things like health and education. That's what development organisations do. But in Zimbabwe, as in many other countries, there's no point in healthy and educated people if there's no jobs, no livelihoods for them afterwards. And the history in recent years in this country has shown a big deterioration in the environment for doing business. So we felt this was a really important gap in the development agenda, which we wanted to fill, working with the private sector, working with the media, and really trying to make a positive difference so that it would be easier for businesses to invest and to grow in Zimbabwe.
Since 2014, the program has achieved a number of results, especially around taxation, in getting government and BMOs to consult more effectively towards policy formulation.
Even though the environment for business has remained challenging, there have been some real improvements as a result of this program. And one of them is on the regulatory environment. And I'd like to give a particularly good example or two on tax. So the first one is on VAT exemptions. An exemption was given for mobile phone usage with financial services. And this has really facilitated the growth of use of mobile money and financial inclusion in that way, giving benefits to a great many Zimbabweans. Another example is of double taxation and removing that. And to give you one group of people who this has benefited very much, it's commuter minibus taxis. And this has saved them 20 to 30%. And that's money which they can now put back into their businesses or take home to their families. So another great, simple example of how the program's making a difference to ordinary lives here.
The overall strategy used for the program was the M4P strategy, making markets work for the poor. This, as a result, saw the program being implemented through 4 components: the government ministries, departments and agencies, business membership organizations, media and research, all working together to deliver on the vision to facilitate a sustainable change to the way public-private dialogue on business issues is carried out in Zimbabwe.
It wasn't business as usual. The program used a market systems development approach, whereby we looked at the dialogue system, the dialogue and the policy reform system in Zimbabwe as a market. So in a market, you know, you've got core players, then you've also got the supporting functions. So in this case, our core players in this market was the MDAs and the BMOs. So the PMOs, in the form of lobbying for policy reforms, better policy reforms in the business environment, and the MDAs not necessarily listening and also taking action in terms of refining certain policies and engaging the PMOs as well in the policy formulation process. So in this case, we had 4 components in which the PMOs and the MDAs were forming the core functions of the market system. And we had the research and the media, which were forming the supporting functions. Research providing the form of evidence that is needed for PMOs to engage government, because government was in our scoping exercise, government was saying PMOs are coming without evidence to engage them, so they don't have enough research to effectively engage government in its policy formulation. So research was sort of like a component that was designed to work both with MDAs and PMOs. So assisting PMOs to come up with informed policy brief for their advocacy issues, and at the same time working with government in terms of when the government wants to refine policies or come up with policies, so they also needed some form of research. So we're supporting both government and MDAs with research. And looking at media was providing the supporting role of magnifying or rather amplifying the voices of what comes out of the dialogues, and also engaging the general populace in the form of whatever policies are discussed. So it was mostly coming up with a way of ensuring that the voices of the rest of the population are also ahead when it comes to these dialogues and these policy development processes. So this was the initial strategy as we started the project. Then as we went into the bridging phase, we went on to take a step further to give the supporting functions the roles also to lead, also to take forward, to lead the dialogue process, whereby researchers, Zimbabwe had so many economic challenges, so researchers would research on certain topics and then invite PMOs and government to come, and they present those researches and make discussions towards formulating better policies. And looking also at media, championing these dialogues as well, providing the dialogue space, choosing certain topics and engaging research, PMOs and MDAs to come together to that platform, which will be magnified, we'll probably say on TV, on newspapers, to really get this right out to the people.
The program achievements are therefore solely measured through the results achieved by BIP partners, who were all selected for their willingness to try out new and innovative ways to promote public-private dialogue. Each of the components in the final year of the program had an overall focus in line with the needs of business as follows. 1. Business membership organizations, BMOs. To strengthen BMOs in order to improve economic returns for their members. 2. Government. To capacitate MDAs for the better responsiveness to the needs of business. 3. Media organizations. To deploy media tools in the expansion of opportunities for business. 4. Research support. To improve business environment through the greater use of research tools and knowledge generated.
Intervention level, we were measuring how effective our intervention is at driving change and bringing about systemic change. Our main cause of concern was the systemic change, to ensure that our partners take up this form of intervention and how it drives change to bring about impacts and outcomes. So that's how we were dealing with measurement at intervention level. So the major way we were actually measuring this was using the causal attribution strategy, whereby we are following our technical assistance in how it comes out with results, and how it's taken up by the partner, and how it translates to impact and outcomes. So that's how we were measuring at intervention level. Then moving on, we were working with partners, both at government, sorry, not both, but throughout the whole 4 components: research, media, MDAs and PMOs. So we're actually measuring how each of our partners was taking up our innovations, our technical assistance. So we're measuring how their speed of movement when it comes to the interventions, their commitment in terms of time and whatever they were contributing towards the achievement of the intervention. In this instance, we are actually looking at how they were taking ownership of this process and ensuring that they are successful rather than looking at how the project was being successful. So we were actually measuring our success in terms of measuring how successful the partner has been in utilizing the technical assistance that we've given them to really ensure that they become visible. If it's a PMO, it's about how effective they become, how effective they are in representing the interests of their members, and how effective they are in lobbying for the interests of their members, and how effective they are in achieving reforms that they require for their members. So in that case, it's the PMO records such kind of success. It translates back to and it comes back to the project, because we're actually tracing the causal attribution. We're actually tracing the causal successes of the intervention. So looking at the third part was looking at how we manage our risks. Remember, Zimbabwe has been associated with so many risks, most of them being political. So we had to really ensure that we track our risks in terms of the political, the general economic risks, and looking at also the partners that we work with. Some of them would pose risks in the project because of the economic situation. So those three attributes actually helped us to really manage to measure and see how our success has been moving for the project.
One of the critical elements in the program has been ensuring that it provides value for money for the funders as well as the partners involved in implementing the program.
Value for money is an assessment tool that we use to evaluate program expenditure as compared to the results, as compared to the outputs of the program. Basically, it's the stewardship that is being measured, whereby we're saying it's better value for money if you have used the least cost. It's better value for money if you have reached the most inclusive reach, if you have managed to achieve the most long-lasting impact that you can with your results. Our work with value for money entails management, whereby we're managing our operations to ensure value for money. It also entails comparisons, comparing for value for money. It entails, after that, improvement wherever possible for value for money. In managing for value for money, we have, to our benefit, the program design. The program is actually essentially designed to mainstream activities with those partners that give the biggest traction, to ensure that we concentrate on activities that give us the biggest impact. So as we go on, where we would have probably started off with many partners, we streamline our activities to those partners where we achieve bigger value for money. So that's on the program side. On the finance and operations side, we have the benefit of a robust finance and management policy, which helps us to prevent fraud and to be able to detect fraud. It helps us to optimize cost wherever possible. So it gives us guidance on how we accept expenses and on which way we manage those expenses to ensure that we keep our cost as low as possible. So that is on management for value for money. The second aspect is comparison. Comparison is key on value for money. And we have the benefit of monthly reports, we have the benefit of quarterly reports. We also have benefit of half-yearly reports. All these reports help us to capture all the costs and compare them with the outputs and evaluate whether we are actually achieving the desired outputs. On the half-yearly reports, we also have discussions with technical advisory panels where we review previous 6 months activities and decide and optimize on the activities to come. That way, not only on the cost aspect, but also on the program aspect, we helped to decide on the most important activities that give us the best traction for value for money. That is on comparing. And then improvement is a result. Because of those monthly reports, because of those monthly assessments, those quarterly or periodic assessments, we are constantly improving our value for money. So those are the 3 key activities of value for money that we are involved in.
Partnership established and developed in the various components have been critical in making the program sustainable by availing their time and resources to implement various new and innovative ways of carrying out public-private dialogue.
The nature of our program, being a business enabling environment program, our results and our outputs are mostly intangible. Because they are intangible, it's very difficult to actually quantify your outcomes, to be able to compare them with the inputs, because that way it's very easy and plain to see. If it were tangible, you would then say we've achieved $100 as compared to the $20 we put in. But for our program, it's not that simple, because our outcomes and outputs are regulatory reforms, things that you cannot actually directly quantify. That makes it very difficult for us to be able to easily demonstrate value for money. The second challenge we face is the time that it takes for our results to achieve an impact that can be demonstrable. Most of the time when we achieve a reform, it probably takes at least 6 months for implementation thereof to actually impact on the beneficiaries, so that we are able to then capture the result. And sometimes it may take as long as 2 years to actually see that impact being enjoyed by the beneficiaries. So that time frame for us, it makes it very difficult. But at the same time that it is a challenge, it is something that we are very sure it is long lasting. The impact will be long lasting. Perhaps 2 years from now that we have closed the program, we'll be able to celebrate and say this was our work. I'm very happy, and I celebrate the National Competitiveness Report series, which work we've been doing with the National Economic Consultative Forum. We have had this series 3 years running. We started off in 2015, whereby an extensive research was carried out nationwide to assess our competitiveness. When that research was done, recommendations were produced from there, which were fed into the budget. And we've seen those recommendations being adopted by government over the past 3 years. The reason why it is a success story for us is it's 3 key things. The first thing is that whereas we as the BIP program have been financing this program 100% at inception, right now we can actually say that we are very sure that it will be ongoing, even though we will no longer be there. This year specifically, we probably contributed less than 50% of the full cost of the program. So we have seen the partner incorporating other partners to be able to finance this program. The second thing is systematic change that we've seen with our partner, whereby they have embraced this program and made it theirs. They've actually put it into an annual program on their own calendar, such that we are very sure that even beyond us, they will be having this program. Then the third thing is a skills transfer that we've actually seen. Initially, we incorporated the technical assistance of consultants from as far as America who had experience in this. On the second year, we saw their contribution being dwindled because local consultants had actually embraced the skills and were able to actually contribute in a bigger way as compared to the external consultants. And then this year, I can tell you for sure, we had 100% involvement of local consultants. So there's a skills transfer that is permanent, and that aspect is to be celebrated. So the National Economic Consultative Forum is a partner who has learned and who has embraced the program that we have brought to the table. So we really celebrate this series, and it's an obvious result of value for money.
In conclusion, it is noted that during the 4-year lifespan of the program, many reforms were enunciated by government and often adopted by MDAs, especially during 2016 and 2017, when the highly successful multi-component Zimbabwe Economic Symposium, ZES, made significant inputs into the 2017 and 2018 budget statements by the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning. In dealing with the root causes of lack of use of evidence in policymaking and weak dialogue platforms, an evidence-based policymaking curriculum and a guide to dialogue were developed and endorsed by the Office of the President and Cabinet, OPC. These two guides were launched by the Chief Secretary in the OPC in June 2015. Between June 2015 and December 2016, the National Economic Consultative Forum, which led in the development of the guides, mainstreamed the use of evidence in policymaking and best practices in carrying out dialogues through training of a number of economic ministries and local authorities, which inter alia include Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Ministry of Economic Planning, City of Harare, Ruwa Council, and Chinhoyi Municipality. With respect to reforms as a result of use of inclusive evidence and effective dialogues, some of the reforms attained were abolishment of the National Incomes and Pricing Commission and establishment of the National Competitiveness Commission, a reform on fuel pricing through the review of the pricing model, elimination of double taxation on presumptive tax payable under informal traders tax, rebate on selected raw materials to enhance the competitiveness of domestic, introduction of tax incentives to companies supporting value chain and business linkages, supporting measures for SMEs through downward revision of presumptive taxes, facilitation of tax registration, ring-fencing sources to capitalize the small and medium enterprises development corporation, VAT exemption for mobile banking services, and reduction in banking transaction charges. It is envisaged that the work done under the Business Enabling Environment Program will continue to have a positive impact on the market system, leading to more sustainable reforms in the coming years.